Okay, well, we're going to jump right back into Attorney Gill's examination of Ms. McDonald.
All right. Thank you very much. We were talking, Ms. McDonald, about permits, and you were describing for us the universe of permits that Elverson 81 will need to acquire, or obtain, I should say. And one of those is general permit WMGM 042 from the Bureau of Waste Management, correct?
Correct.
All right, and I believe you testified on your direct examination that that permit applications, including for that general permit, have been submitted to the Department of Environmental Protection. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. With regard to that waste management permit, the department has issued notice that the submission is incomplete, administratively incomplete, and issued a notice of intent to deny, correct?
They've said that it cannot be a fully complete until zoning is approved. So I think the materials that we've submitted were complete, but they want to make sure that local approval has come in before they're able to make a decision on it.
Okay, that's not the only thing that they listed as a concern, correct?
They also mentioned the HOP driveway permit.
All right, did they also mention that it is unclear how and where piping will be run from the digesters to the storage pond, or from the hydrolysis tanks to the digesters? There is information in your narrative description, but not apparent in the maps provided. Please provide a map that shows these pipe locations if this is known at this time. They made that comment as well, correct?
Yes, that is the notice.
Okay, so when will Elverson 81 resubmit its notice of intent for coverage under general permit WMGM 042?
I think we would need to have local approval complete in order for us to resubmit.
Okay, so until, at least during the pendency of this conditional use hearing, there's not a complete application pending for that waste management permit, correct?
Correct.
All right, with regard to that waste management general permit, are you familiar with the terms of that general permit?
I am familiar with our application. The terms of the full general permit is going to be addressed by our permit applicant, Special Solutions.
Okay, I just wanted to ask you then one thing about the language of the general permit. It reads, this general permit authorizes the beneficial use of methane gas, waste solids, and then it goes on to say liquid waste and solids removed from the digester as a soil additive for agricultural purposes. If fats, oils, and grease are added to the digester, the liquid waste and solids may not be beneficially used as a soil additive if the concentration of fats, oils, and grease exceeds 15,000 milligrams per liter. Are you familiar with that language, at least in the general permit?
I am not.
Okay. I'll ask you just to accept that I've read that correctly for purposes of this next question. How does Vanguard Renewables determine the concentration and composition of the waste products that are going into the digesters?
We take indicative samples, so we take third-party samples of the food waste that is coming into the digester. So if there's, say, a brewery that we're going to take, we'll take a sample of that material, send it to a lab, receive back that testing, understand that composition from that testing. We have a team of biological engineers, chemists who are looking at that data, and then we take in data about how large, how much material was in every truckload. So we would say, we received 2,000 gallons from this brewery. We understand what that material was based on testing that we've taken, and then we understand exactly what composition went in. And we took another load from a dairy manufacturer, we took in 3,500 gallons of that had this test results, and so therefore we understand what the mixture is that came into our hydrolysis tank, and then we can come up with good data to say that's how many. This is exactly how much carbon, nitrogen, et cetera, total solids that go into our digester every day.
Okay, thank you for that comprehensive response. Where is that testing done? Where are the samples collected?
Samples are collected either from the source. So if we go to the manufacturer and we say, oh, we're going to take that tank, we'll take a sample there. Otherwise, trucks can give us quarterly compliance, or if we want to take another sample of the material just to make sure that it continues to be consistent. The buttermilk whey is just the same. It hasn't changed at all. It's not higher in sugar or something like that. We can also take a load when the truck comes to just make sure it's consistent with all of the testing results that we have as well.
So, and I want to drill down here.
Sure.
So the testing at the source, that happens at the time that Vanguard Renewables enters into a contractual relationship with the waste provider, correct?
That's correct.
All right. And is it a standard operating procedure then to take random samples from the waste providers from time to time?
Yes.
And that's done at the point of delivery to the digester, or do you go back and visit the provider at their source, or both?
Both.
Okay. And how often, it's random, but generally speaking, how often do you retest the materials that are coming from various providers?
I think it depends on the volume, so definitely annually testing, and then if required through permits, certain materials, if we take it, for example, more loads, maybe we take it more frequently just to make sure every X amount of tonnage, X amount of gallons that we've taken another indicative sample to make sure everything is, tomato soup still the same composition.
Okay. If samples are being collected at the point of delivery,
Sure.
and the material is being pumped from a tanker truck into the hydrolysis tanks, how is a sample drawn if there's never a point where the waste is seeing daylight?
A truck offloading will, before it goes into the hydrolysis tank, via the hose that they're hooked up to, fill up a sample container,
Okay.
and then hook up and pump out into the hydrolysis tanks.
And you're saying that either through resamples at the source or through truck samples at the point of delivery, that's happening at least annually for each waste provider.
That's correct.
All right. These waste providers, so this is going to be the first facility in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, correct?
That's correct.
All right.
The first Vanguard.
First Vanguard.
Not the first co-digested.
Okay, fair enough. Yep. That's what I meant. I'm sorry, that wasn't clear. So this is the first Vanguard facility in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Will your waste providers be located, where will your waste providers be located?
So we have not fully identified all of the providers. I think the trend is that if you go and you talk to a manufacturer and you say, I'm going to take your waste and turn it into a renewable energy and fertilizer, they say, great, pick up on Tuesday. And so we have general ideas. We understand that in this area there's obviously large population and manufacturing around to provide food for that population, and therefore we don't have them directly identified, but regionally, locally within a truck, probably about an hour drive away, I think, give or take.
All right. And these truck deliveries, you said that there would be 20 to 25 of those per day, right?
Yes.
And 6,000 gallons per load, correct?
Yes, my understanding is that DOT has an 80,000 pound per truck limit, and therefore for them to carry liquid material that usually comes in at 6,000 or below, is my understanding
So
of general
just
sizing.
trying to understand the scope and scale of the operation. Again, this is all about understanding the operation. We're potentially looking at approximately 120 to 130,000 gallons of liquid waste per day. If we're at a maximum of 6,000 gallons per load, 20 to 25 trucks per day, we're generally talking about 120 to 130,000.
I don't know the conversion, but I know that our permit requested for 275 tons per day, which I think is less than that in gallons, but
Okay. So let's assume that we're talking between hundreds of thousands, north of 100,000 gallons per day of liquid waste. How large are the hydrolysis tanks?
one hydrolysis tank is 300,000 gallons, and one is 30,000 gallons, or 2 or 30,000 gallons.
So that's 260,000 gallons of
300,000.
360.
Yeah.
360,000 gallons of material of capacity in the hydrolysis tank.
The goal is
hydrolysis
to
tank.
have 3 to 5 days of storage for contingencies. You know, if we have a Thanksgiving weekend and you don't get any loads Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you can continue to operate.
Okay, and then how large are the digester tanks themselves?
Roughly 1.5 million gallons, I believe.
And there are 2 of them, so
2 of them, yep.
so a total of 3 million.
Approximately, yes.
Can you describe for us the? My understanding is that as the digestion process happens, that there's a membrane top of the digester tank that expands as gas fills the tank. Is that
Yes,
correct?
That is correct.
What causes the membrane to expand, and does the membrane ever contract?
Yes, the membrane can increase and decrease with increase in gas production. We try to keep it at, a reasonable, steady state. Biogas is produced in the tank. It bubbles to the top. That's where it's stored, and that's where the membrane can compress and expand. And then from that headspace, the biogas is pulled via the negative pressure into the biogas separator to be processed.
Okay. To what height above ground level can that membrane reach?
Per the text ordinance that we approved with the board in April, it's 45 feet maximum height, maximum expansion.
Okay. How do you control that?
That's design parameters, just to, the tank will be designed such that that is the maximum height, and so the tank will be partially below ground so that It's designed such that that's the largest it can expand to.
Okay, is that design based on a volume of material coming into the digester operation?
It's designed with that in mind, but it is designed also just the structural capacity.
Can you explain that a little bit more,
I
please?
mean, you know, the tank is for example, a 1.5 million gallon tank is designed around the material we're going to bring in, and so making sure that it's sized accordingly. But you know, how we ensure that it stays at that is the capacity of the tank. That is the capacity of the membrane. That is how large it is designed to expand to, and that is consistent with the design and the flow rates, et cetera. And engineering obviously takes all of that into account and designs for that.
Okay. How consistently will the membrane be at a height of 45 feet?
I don't know the answer to that.
All right. So it sounds like there's an awful lot of thought that's gone into the amount of material that is going into the digester, the size of the tanks, the design parameters of the digester tanks. With that in mind, can you reconsider, or are you in a position to reconsider your earlier testimony that you don't have enough information yet to design the pipes to determine whether they're going to be above ground or below ground, to determine the amount of material that will be delivered back to Kirtland Farms? I guess what I'm trying to understand is, how is there all of this knowledge and information about what's going into the tanks, but not a knowledge of what's coming out?
Can I just make an objection? The folks that got the permit or are getting the permit will be able to testify to the piping and all of that. So that information is coming in. They have that information. It's just this witness didn't apply for the permits and didn't do that design work.
Okay, that's fine. I'm happy to save those questions. This witness did testify regarding she was offered as the witness who was going to tell us about the operation.
But when you asked a question about a design element, that would be part of the permitting process.
Well, no, what I asked was, how is this witness able to give us such specific information about what's going in, but said that Vanguard Renewables doesn't have or hasn't yet engineered for the amount of material coming out?
I think to answer that, we have engineered for the material coming out. Pipe design just tends to, you change the diameter of pipes, et cetera. That's something that's currently being designed. We do have, the general mass balance to say, this is how much is going out. I'm not the engineer that created that. We do have that material, and I think the actual just diameter of the pipe, we know how much is going through and how quickly it goes through, I guess is, that's all just very detailed engineering.
Yeah, the pipe size, I understand your response. What I was really trying to understand was the volume, coming back to the volume of material coming out of the process. Your testimony was that 100% of it is going back to Kirtland Farms. I'm trying to get a handle on what that volume is, given your testimony and the application's language about use the term, your term, collaboration between the operation and the farm. But I'll move on. Sorry. The hours of operation between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m., you said that there is always going to be employees on this site between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m., correct?
Employees generally are on the site 7 a.m. to about probably 4.
So is the digester not operating between 6 p.m. and 6 a.m.?
The digester operates 24/7. It is remote operated from afar when 24/7 operations. Trucks can arrive anywhere from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. And
Oh, so it's possible that trucks will be making deliveries to the digester when there are not Vanguard Renewable employees there?
if pre-approved. So a known truck driver, for example, if they have, a load that came straight from a manufacturer, the manufacturer needs the truck to come in, first thing in the morning before it begins operating. A truck could come in potentially as early as 6 a.m. The majority of the trucks will come in during the 7 to 4 hours, but there's always just, this one truck that needed to, empty a tank at a manufacturing facility or something like that, at 3 a.m. and therefore has made its way over by 6.
So it's possible that a truck delivering liquid waste material to the digester operation would be there, making a delivery, hooking up, delivering into the hydrolysis tank, and leaving before a Vanguard Renewables employee shows up.
It's possible, yes, and that truck would have to receive approval, so it wouldn't just be an uncontrolled. The team would know, this is the material that's going in. They would need to unlock the gate, for them remotely, et cetera, and they would need to be able to unlock the system, and so it wouldn't just be a, random uncontrolled load.
Let's talk about that security unlocking of the gate. So delivery truck drivers won't themselves be able to unlock the gate, correct?
The gate to the facility, I guess I don't know the extent to what the fence is, but I do know that our system has lockout components for all of the tanks. And so in order to be able to hook up to the facility, there's lock codes, et cetera, that a truck driver has to call somebody that's constantly changing, and they will have to unlock the system for a truck to be able to unload.
Okay, and again, to revisit your earlier testimony, employees of Kirtland Farms wouldn't play any role in that?
No, this would be Vanguard operation, yes.
Okay. Can you explain what you mean? You just, during that last answer you gave, you said you're not familiar, sorry, I'm paraphrasing, you're not intimately familiar with the fence operation. Can you tell us what you mean by that?
I'm not sure what the code combo to enter the fence or what that will entail.
I want to make sure I understand your testimony. I'm not asking you for the code. I'm asking you if you understand the security system.
No, I know conceptually that it can be unlocked remotely. I don't know what it is. I know that there is a chain link fence. I don't know if that, I don't know the security of the gate.
All right. The 20 to 25 tanker trucks per day, does Vanguard Renewables own any of those trucks?
It could be a combination of a few different things. It could be working with a third-party trucking company. It could be working with if a manufacturer runs their own trucks. And it could be Vanguard either owned or contracted with, like designated trucks. I think it's kind of all of the above.
How can Vanguard Renewables ensure for the township and the residents the delivery times for these trucks?
So every load that arrives at site is pre-scheduled. So there's no load that we don't know about that just shows up on site. Every load is pre-scheduled. We have a full logistics team that's handling that. They're coordinating, scheduling loads, whether it means they're working with the manufacturer, working with the hauler, et cetera. So the logistics team, if it's the truck that we have control of the, exact hours that they come, then we can say, we can come at points in which it's a lower, traffic time, et cetera, or we can coordinate certain flows. If it's a manufacturer's, we will work with them and we will know what time they're arriving before they arrive. Our logistics team will have, a good understanding of what the schedule for the following day will look like.
Is it universally true at the other facilities that Vanguard Renewables operates that there's never a situation when delays happen and trucks are showing up outside of the expected timeframe?
It can happen. I mean, you could see, you know, a truck that is scheduled for, say, a 3 p.m. delivery that breaks down, you know, on the highway on its way, or, you know, gets a flat tire, and then arrives outside. But, you know, all scheduled loads would be scheduled for the time. I think that's a very rare instance. But that could happen, yes.
Okay. Likewise, for those trucks that Vanguard Renewables doesn't control, if the township were to impose a condition that says, for instance, all truck traffic must head in one direction or another on Main Street,
Sure.
how would Vanguard Renewables be able to guarantee that that condition is complied with if Vanguard Renewables doesn't control those trucks?
Yeah, so before we accept any loads, we make sure that all drivers have been trained. And by that, we have a training protocol and we send that out to them. So whether that means that that's us sending it to, you know, trucks that we operate, or whether that's us sending it to a hauler that, you know, is already handling the material, the truck driver must see that training before they arrive at our site. That could say, you know, you have to come in from this way. And so we are able to, you know, direct them and the way that we maintain compliance. You know, we have our operators on site to say, hey, you know, you need to make sure that you go out this way. And, you know, we have relations with the haulers to make sure to call them to say, you know, your truck driver needs to comply with this.
Would Vanguard Renewables, Elverson 81, accept a condition if the board is inclined to grant grant approval, that if, and it imposes a condition on trucks traveling in a certain direction, that failure to comply with that would require Vanguard Renewables to cease its relationship with those truckers?
I would say
Or
that we
providers?
would probably give the truck a warning would be my best guess. Just, I mean, to, you know, let them know that, you know, you've gone the wrong way and that this would be a warning and the next time. But yes, it is something that we would look into to, you know, say we cannot work with them. But I think that the first step would just be to train and redirect, and say, you know, make sure that your truck driver's coming in from this way. This, you know, new driver, this is first time, his GPS led him this way, but make sure that he knows better next time.
Okay. I don't want to speak for my friend, but could Vanguard Renewables ensure that, subject to trucks breaking down or
Sure.
getting lost, could Vanguard Renewables ensure that truck traffic isn't at the intersection of Twin Valley Road and Main Street, or in the vicinity of the intersection during the hours when students are traveling to and from school?
I think we could probably schedule the majority of the loads. I think there are just certain trucks that, you know, we're not, that they have to leave, say, the manufacturer at this hour, and we wouldn't be able to, like, dictate that, but I would say that we would be able to ensure that the majority of trucks are outside of those windows.
Okay. Will another witness be able to testify about, you said another witness will be able to testify about the material that's going into the digester, specifically about fry oil or grease from grease traps, correct?
I'm just not familiar with that exact language in the permit, so I would just want to review it before I speak to it.
I'm sorry, so you'll be able to testify that at our next hearing session, or will somebody else be? I don't want to ask you questions that you don't know the answers to if there's somebody else.
If the question's about the permit requirements in terms of what is in those DEP regulations, another witness will respond to that.
Okay, so let me ask you then, Ms. McDonald, how does fry oil and grease break down in the digester?
It's an organic material. It's, that's food. It's the same as, we cook with vegetable oil. So it's, the oil that you fry in. Fry later oil is, the same as I would do on my own stove. So that material is organic material that will break down in the anaerobic digester in the same way that dairy will break down as well.
Okay, are you familiar with, I'm not going to ask you about the permit language, but you understand why DEP has a limitation on 15,000 milligrams per liter?
No, I would need to look
Okay.
at that and can for the next hearing.
The employees who will work we've reached the point of the cross-examination where I'm going back and forth
Sure.
in my notes. So I'm sorry to be all over the place. The employees who will be resident on site,
Yes.
those will be employees of what entity?
Elverson 81?
Okay, so they're not going to be employees directly of Vanguard Renewables?
No. Vanguard Renewables does not, I don't believe so. I don't think Vanguard Renewables itself, the entity, is the employer. I would say that it's
Okay.
subsidiaries that are employing the.
Understood. Will those individuals be hired from the nearby community?
Yes. So everybody who is an operator on site is trained, across Vanguard Renewables' portfolio. Everyone is all on one operations team. So there's a daily operations call across operational sites where everyone can have all of their testing, all of their morning maintenance done to say, my chemistry levels are this, and they have reported it to the team of biological engineers who are managing dosing, et cetera. So it's all, while they work for, operate just this site, or it's a fully, it's one operations team that works together. So they'll be working from knowledge that we have across all of our operational sites, whether it's on the co-digestion side or from operating even just a manure-only digester, because it's an anaerobic digester as well. We have lots of knowledge and SOPs that we've created, and therefore we would be hiring local people because they need to live close to site to make it to site every day. But they would be probably under managed by somebody who is working for across several digester products.
Understood. I guess my question then is, if there is an incident at the site that requires Vanguard or Elverson 81 employees to come to the site outside of their normal normal employment hours, how does that get communicated to the employee?
Sure. So we have across projects people who are on call, and so that's all scheduled so that somebody at all times is on call for potentially more than one project if there's a few within a region. So in Massachusetts we have maybe one person is on call for 3 sites that are close by, but they have all of the alarms for all of the SCADA system coming to their phone, iPad, computer, etc. They're on call, so 3 a.m. if they say, oh, a pump stopped, they can reset it hopefully remotely, and they'll get that alarm and press that button. And if they go, it didn't, it keeps triggering, they'll go out to site, and that's a rotating requirement.
Okay. All right. Okay. See if we can streamline this a little bit. Mr. Yo, you said at the next hearing session, we'll be able to have a better understanding of the piping of the gas to another location and the trucking of it from that location?
That's correct.
Okay. In that regard, though, without getting into the trucking operation, I know, Ms. McDonald, you testified that the Berks County Ag Preservation Board has indicated its support for the anaerobic digester project,
I don't
correct?
think she testified to that. I think that was the prior.
Ah.
Mr. Kurtz.
Understood. Ms. McDonald, have you had any interaction with the Berks County Ag Preservation Board?
I have not.
Okay. Are you familiar, though, with how biogas will get from the anaerobic digester facility to a trucking facility? And I'm not asking for specifics about that property yet.
So biogas, and this is technical, so apologies if I'm too specific, but biogas is treated on site. So biogas goes into the biogas upgrader and it creates a natural gas. So biogas is not actually transported off site. So only natural gas, like pipeline quality natural gas, is transported off site. I think that's a distinction that's worth making.
Yes, thank you.
And so it's the same natural gas that is seen in pipelines that heat homes, institutions, et cetera. That natural gas would be transported off-site via pipeline. And that's, the same as a pipeline that's going into somebody's house to heat their home as a natural gas. And that's, pipeline quality natural gas is leaving the site.
Okay. Has Elverson AD1 obtained real estate property rights or interests that would be required to run a pipeline from the anaerobic digester facility to a receiving facility where the gas would be shipped off-site?
Yes.
And where will that pipeline be located? Can you
So
show us on the
that's-
plan where that will come out of the property?
We're gonna go over that at the next hearing.
Okay, so I'm not asking about the actual trucking
Oh, you
facility.
just mean right?
Yeah, I'm asking
right
how
now?
will the gas leave the site?
From the biogas upgrader, I don't have the pipe run designated, but I don't have the pipe run.
Okay. The application for conditional use approval states that the biogas produced as a result of the digester will be transported off the property via a small 4-inch pipeline.
That's correct.
So you know that the pipeline will be 4 inches, but you don't know where it's going to be located, correct?
The pathway has not been fully engineered, no.
Okay. Will any of the gas product from the digester facility be utilized at the Kirtland farm? Or will any of the gas generated from the anaerobic digester be utilized at the Kirtland farm?
No.
So I'd like to talk now about the buffering and screening of the operation. Would you turn your attention to exhibit?
Dale, we're gonna have a civil engineer that is gonna go over that? Are you talking about the landscaping and?
Yeah, well, the witness testified about the renderings.
Okay.
And in particular, she testified about the street view in Exhibit A9. So my question is, you have that exhibit there?
Yes.
So is the gray line that's running sort of in the foreground of this image, is that supposed to be Route 23, Main Street?
Yes.
Okay. And you testified about a line of trees that will be planted. To your understanding, are the trees depicted in this image indicative of the trees that will be planted at the site?
The actual landscaping and actual type of tree is something that I'm not particularly familiar with, the type of tree, but that's what our civil engineer will speak to.
Okay, so is it your testimony that it's possible that this image isn't really illustrative of what will be at the site?
I think it's that trees would exist there, yes. Type of tree, I can't speak to what kind of tree that is.
Okay, and do you know about, it's okay if you don't know, but do you know about how long after planting trees would reach this height?
No, I do not.
Okay. Nevertheless, in this image, would you agree with me that these trees, as depicted in this image, aren't doing very much to block the view of the digester facility? Is that a fair characterization?
That one can still see the digester?
Yes.
Yes, you can still see the digester.
Will the digester operation require any, will the digester facility itself have any bathrooms on site for the employees?
We will, I'm not sure if it will be, so I guess it will be one of two things?
Just yes.
Yes.
Okay. Well, now, so now I have to ask you the follow-on question. Will there be an on-lot sanitary sewer system, or will this be connected to public sewer?
It would either be a septic tank, or a porta-john.
I'm sorry, or a porta-john?
Mm-hmm.
All right, and what about water supply?
We will be utilizing a well.
And where will that well be located?
That has yet to be permitted.
Will the well be on the leased premises, or will the well be on the remainder of the Kirtland farm?
That is yet to be discussed.
Has there been any testing done yet to determine whether a well is feasible? Whether you can actually drill a well and draw water from it?
Vanguard has not completed testing.
Okay, so the application's statement that water supply and sanitary sewer will be provided, or information about those will be provided at land development. Your testimony is that as we sit here in conditional use, you don't have the information about the sanitary sewer or water supply.
I can confirm those at the next, or I can do my best to confirm those at the next hearing.
Okay. All right. Thank you for bearing with me. I know this is rather meticulous, but as I said, it's important for the Planning Commission that we drill down to this level of granularity. Yeah, just real quickly, to come back to the issue of testing the food waste. These are contractual relationships with dedicated providers, right?
Yes.
All right, and how do you choose those providers?
We have a team that works on identifying food providers, food producers who may have, residual food that would be a good candidate for anaerobic digestion. So, they may have residual garlic or oil after they fry their food.
Okay, all right. I think what we want to understand, and maybe if you can provide some information at the next hearing session, we want to understand the process that Vanguard Renewables goes through in selecting those providers, so that the township can know how can Vanguard Renewables guarantee what is going into the facility and therefore what's coming out of the facility.
Sure, I can speak to more of that now then. So we have the sales team that, identifies this is a brewery. And they'll call up the brewery and say, what are you doing with the waste that, the process waste that you have, where is it going right now? They'll go to site, they'll take a tour, they will take a sample, we'll test it, make sure that, it's a material that isn't, just pure water and not going to have any energy value, or, is good, consistent material for the digester, because we want to maintain good operations. From there, they'll sign a contract with the provider, and then our logistics team will take over. Our logistics team will work with the operations team at that facility to identify, scheduling loads, et cetera, make sure they understand, which beer tank are we taking from? Is it your, whatever it is, is this your buttermilk whey? Is this your milk? Is this your butter? And okay, when will your tank be filled? And then they communicate that to our operations. We have test samples of the material and therefore, know what is coming in.
Okay. It's that quality control component that I think is very important to the
Yes.
township, or at least to the planning commission.
And to us as well.
Taking a look at Exhibit A14, the operations and maintenance plan. Was this O&M plan developed for the Kirtland Farm facility, or is this a template?
This was developed for the Kirtland Farm based on standard procedures that we have across sites.
Okay, what in this document is specific to the Kirtland Farm facility?
All of the language was written specifically for this site.
Okay. I don't want to belabor this point, but what about the site led to specific language in this plan? You said that this was prepared specifically for the Kirtland Farm site.
Right.
What, can you point us to any language in here that was included specifically because of conditions at the Kirtland Farm site?
I think that the conditions at the Kirtland Farm site are similar to those that we have operationally. It's not particularly different. It was written for this based on, I guess, the same mechanisms and operations that we conduct across sites. I don't know that there's anything that's here specifically different at this farm that we don't do at other sites.
So I guess my question, Ms. McDonald, is if I hold an operations and maintenance plan for a Vanguard Renewables facility in Vermont, it might look very much like, if not identical, to this document.
Yes.
Okay. This plan speaks about key performance indicators, KPIs. What are those key performance indicators?
So every morning, the team on site will take samples. They test for pH, temperature. They test for, they take a COD and a VFA, which is volatile fatty acids test, and chemical oxygen demand. They take specific samples that give us good indicators of digester health, biogas production, et cetera. So several tests go on and are put into our system for the team of operational engineers, biological engineers, to make sure that, the digester is getting a good recipe, isn't, in need of more protein or something else, and that we can make additions just to make sure we're at optimal operation.
Okay. Are the results of those tests proprietary, or do those get shared with governmental agencies? Or both?
Those tests, I would say, would be proprietary. I would say that for government, we have, every permit will have requirements for what indicators they look. They're not usually the same. I think that, certain indicators that we think are important may not be things that others test for, but we do give, we send information for compliance for our permits to agencies, government agencies.
Okay. So pH, temperature, COD, VFAD, anything else that's tested for?
There are several things that are tested for. I don't know all of them, but we have, several metrics that the operations team is looking at every day for every site, 24/7.
Is it ever the situation where the results of these tests lead to a shutdown of the facility? Temporary shutdown of the facility?
I think it would lead to an adjustment. So if we need to make a change I think part of it is that we're looking at things proactively, preventatively, to make sure that before we hit an event that would lead to a shutdown, that, you can see the temperatures beginning to drop before it drops to a point that, is an issue, we can change something up. So a lot of the metrics that we're looking at are so that we have preventative action before there is any incident.
Has it ever been the situation, has it ever occurred at any of the other Vanguard Renewables facilities that a shutdown occurred?
Well, for one thing is, shutting down to, if a utility, for example, goes down, and you're not able to, put gas into their pipeline, so we can turn down dosing, for example, and so we can do several things on our end to accommodate that. I think as far as the full system, part of the reason why we have 2 anaerobic digesters is, say you needed to conduct maintenance, changing any equipment out, you always have another digester, and that allows us to not have to turn down the system, because that's very tedious. So by having 2, it allows us to, if we need to do change something on one, we can continue to operate.
So asking that question a different way, has there ever been an adverse incident at any of the other Vanguard Renewable facilities that has led to a shutdown, other than, a lack of power, maintenance? I'm talking about something adverse.
I guess I don't know what an adverse.
Has there ever been a situation at any other Vanguard Renewables facility that was not related to a lack of power, but rather related to the operation of the facility that caused the facility to shut down?
I'm not sure. I would have to get back to you on that one.
Okay. In that same document, the operations and maintenance plan, on section E, section 2, which deals with maintenance, the language suggests that a maintenance program will be developed.
Yes.
Does that mean that a maintenance plan is not in place yet for this facility?
No, so this is the, operation and maintenance plan that was developed. I think what we said was that further SOPs, so for example, when you purchase pieces of equipment, just an update in the model can change certain SOPs. So as we purchase equipment for the project, really tailoring in, here's how to operate this piece of equipment. This has a different lever, this has a different sensor, and here's how to operate that. That will be developed to add more color to specific equipment operating.
Okay, so, but this refers to preventative maintenance. The preventative maintenance plan will be developed. Let me ask the question a different way. When will that preventative maintenance plan be developed? When will you be in a position to share that with the township? I'm looking at paragraph 2A, the first bullet point in Exhibit A14, which reads, preventative maintenance plan will be developed.
I would say that would be specifically for particular equipment, once it's purchased, once it's been ordered, specifically, how do you operate those?
Okay,
Which would be during construction then.
So either during conditional use or during land development, you won't be in a position to share a maintenance plan for the site with the township. That would be something that would happen during construction?
I mean, I think that we have provided our maintenance plan, and that any additional specifics to equipment would be something that we would be able to know more during construction.
Okay, well, I don't want to argue with you, but your maintenance plan says a scheduled planned maintenance program for all qualifying system equipment will be prepared. So
During construction.
I'm not sure I agree with you that you provided the maintenance plan, because your maintenance plan says that the maintenance plan will be prepared.
I'm going
to move on.
Let me just put an objection on the
Go ahead.
record. We've now been at this 2 hours. The testimony is that specific pieces of equipment change, so they do not develop a preventative maintenance or SOP for that type of equipment until they know exactly what's going in. That's the testimony. Okay, so that will be provided at the time that that equipment is selected and installed as part of their normal preventative maintenance. And I think that that has been clearly stated.
And if that's the testimony, fine. This is the applicant's submission to the township to say we comply with conditional use criteria. I think I'm well within my purview to probe these words. But I'll move on. And I know we're coming up to 10 o'clock here. The language in the operations and maintenance plan says that the facility will utilize industry standards and best practices. Can you tell us what that means, Ms. McDonald? What are industry standards and best practices?
Sorry, can you point me to where?
Sure, I'm at the top of the page. I'm in the same section, 2A. And I'm trying to understand what the meaning of the words industry standards and best practices is, or, and I don't mean to be pejorative, are these just words?
Well, so that specifically says for all qualifying system equipment, and so when you purchase, equipment, and when you specifically work with, you choose your vendor, that vendor will give you, here's the operations and maintenance for this equipment. So even between, two different vendors that you select, slightly different operating and maintenance, so each piece of equipment, and this says specifically for all qualifying system equipment, and that's when you would get it, is once you've selected that vendor, you purchase that equipment, they would provide you with, here's the operating manual for that piece of equipment.
Okay, fair enough. So in understanding the entire scope of operations of this facility, there are standard operating procedures which apply across Vanguard Renewables that will be implemented at this facility, correct?
Correct.
There are facility-specific procedures that will be implemented at this facility, and those may or may not have been developed yet, correct?
And there will be ones that will be created once equipment has been purchased and a vendor has provided the operations and maintenance.
That was my third bullet point then. There will be equipment-specific maintenance plans
Yes.
that will be developed.
Yes.
And as to the second and third of those categories, facility-specific SOPs and equipment-specific maintenance, we don't know yet what those are going to be, correct?
I mean, I think facility is, I think everything except equipment has already been submitted.
Okay. And it's your testimony and your position that that submission is contained in Exhibit A14?
Yes.
Okay. That same document goes on to suggest that employees at the facility will wear appropriate hearing protection to protect against loud noises, correct?
Yes.
Can you, what types of noises will be generated at this facility?
Walking around site, the noise is just standard. It's not anything loud. It's standard, buzz of equipment. Hearing equipment would be required if, say, fixing a motor or doing something, more maintenance related to a particular piece of equipment, not a standard day-to-day.
All right, so hearing equipment isn't required as a general policy for employees at the site?
It's not needed, correct.
Okay.
But would be during, particular maintenance, particular changing of pieces of equipment.
All right. You said a moment ago that just generally walking around the site, there's just a standard buzz of equipment, right? Do you know what decibel level that is at?
I do not.
Okay. Has any analysis been done to determine whether that buzz will be audible at properties off the Kirtland Farm property?
I am not sure. I do not know.
10 o'clock, end of question. Not end of my questioning, but end of the question.
Okay, so you'll continue then?
I would like to,
It'd be
yes.
nice to wrap up the 2-hour cross-examination.
Are you close to wrapping up?
No.
If I could have maybe 15 more minutes? I don't,
Wrap this up in 15 minutes.
I promise I'll try to speed through here.
I think the board's exhausted. That's what I'm getting at. Let's go off the record for a minute and find a new date. I think the board wants to propose January 7th. Well, for the record, January 7th, it's a Tuesday. One question I have for Heather would be, it's the Board of Auditors reorganization night. When do they meet? Do you recall? Is it 6:30 or 7? Is it possible to have both running at the same time? I know that's only like a 5-minute meeting. So we can start at 6:30 here downstairs. Someone will need to facilitate that meeting upstairs, that was my question. So 6:30, January 7th, does that work?
Yeah, the township traffic engineer can't make it that night, but we'll figure something out.
At this point, yeah, I don't know that the township witnesses are going to be
Not at the rate we're
presenting.
going.
I think applicant had 3 to 5 witnesses ready for tonight, and we didn't finish one. Not that it's anybody's fault, but it's just slower than expected, so. Everybody looks like January 7th, 6:30, right? So let's go on the record. So we were off the record to try to compare calendars and schedules, and it looks like applicants available, council's available. Most importantly, the supervisors are available to continue the hearing on January 7th at 6:30 p.m. at this very same location. This will be, again, a continuation of the same hearing, so there will not be new advertisements or public notices published. We're going to just recess the hearing and then resume it on January 7th. So, Madam Chair, if you want to just entertain a motion to recess until January 7th, 6:30 p.m.